morning, you beautiful humans. My name is Ariane Andrew.
I'm Matt Dillon, and welcome to another piping hot episode of Sippin' the Tea, where we
sip the tea and our guests
spill that tea.
Ooh,
Get it? We got little Miss Mama in town today.
We have a little glitty.
And today, guys, you can stream every new episode of Season 5 of Bosch with our next guest. Came out April 19th. He's also up for Emmy consideration for guest star on Hawaii Five-0, Tim Lounibos. And wait, sorry, Tim, but you might be upstage, brother. Pippin Lounibos?
I guess so. That'll work.
My
Pippin.
brother. Nice to meet you, man. Pippin.
Hi,
Ladies in the house.
It's a doggy party.
We were like, bring the dog.
Yeah, and I have no idea. This is actually, she's doing all right. I for all I knew, she's gonna be running around crazy, but she's good.
Nice
She's
and
ready for the
calm.
close-up.
Yeah.
Look at that.
She's serving
Right
love.
there, right there.
Are you natural?
She is a
Huh?
natural.
Are you natural? Oh, okay.
Look at Mama's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, Mama's getting a little jealous, Tim. We're not sure what's
Yeah,
happening.
you're
But let's get into Bosch, shall we?
Okay.
Yeah, so tell us about, like, let's walk it back. I know you
Yeah.
took a break from acting.
Yes.
And I guess before we even get into Bosch, let's talk about that. You took a break.
Yeah,
and let's discuss that.
I acted for a long time. I came out of college and came down to LA to pursue acting. You know, I started up in San Francisco in the Bay Area, and then I established myself, and I had a very good career.
You got them credits. I see that IMDb. I was like, you got them credits, brother.
And but the interesting thing is, at the time, you know, there's pretty much a glass ceiling for Asian American male, and back then they would say things like, "We're not going that way," or you know, "He's too manly." but you know, I still was able to carve out a good living, and probably the top of what I was allowed to do was to go in for like guest star roles.
Okay.
And then at some point I just got older, as happens to all of us, and was no longer, somehow I got into this in-between stage where I was considered too old for the parts that I used to do, but was not quite old enough for the other parts. And I had a family of 4, so I held out, tried to make it work for a couple more years, and finally decided I just gotta, you know, go out and get a job. And I never thought that I would be doing that, you know. And I just did what I had to do, and I completely, you know, went cold turkey.
You walked.
I walked. I'll never forget.
That takes guts.
My first day of work, I was a business administrator at a theater called East West Players in downtown LA. My first day of work, as I was driving to work, I get a call from my agent that I had just left.
Oh, Lord.
And he goes, "Tim, I know you said this is it and you're done, but Hawaii Five-0, there's a new show, Hawaii Five-0, and they want to see you," ironically. And I said, "No." I said, "I made a commitment, and that I'm going to honor it."
Oh, we'll get to why that's even funnier a little later.
Yeah,
But I'm like,
yeah.
I kind of admire that you kind of did rip the Band-Aid off and went, no, it hit the wall. And I noticed from your social presence that you are now kind of pioneering that inclusion, not exclusion. And I think it was funny that the topic was brought up that you hit a ceiling.
Yeah.
In 2019, as an Asian American, do you think that ceiling still exists to a degree?
Oh, I think it definitely exists to a degree. That it has raised. I mean, there's much more opportunity now than there was before.
I would say that.
And I think it continually is pushing that ceiling up.
Yeah.
And at some point it'll break it, you know, and it'll explode.
100%.
And you know, streaming services, all of the above, you know, all the distribution outlets now, and the social media presence of people who want to see themselves on the screen, etc.
What are you talking about? Please hold.
You know,
Give me a minute. Oh my God.
you know.
Thanks for coming in, Tim. Now, Pippin, what's
It's all about you. No, but yeah, all of that is just forcing the issue. It can no longer be controlled by, you know, small rooms of certain types of people making the decisions.
I love that.
Yeah.
Very similar to kind of your story, and like I see a synergy there between y'all.
I mean, the entertainment and the acting business is one tough cookie. So after you decided that, you know, you were done, then how did Bosch even come along?
Well, so then that was a decade ago. You know, 2009 is when I left, and in 2009. And 2010, I started the job. So I guess I left in 2010. But I did 2.5 years as that business administrator position, doing what my neighbor said. He goes, "Welcome to the world of the working stiffs."
I look at your eyes. He's like, I did 2.5 years of, with a smile though. Yes, but I can see in the eyes,
it's
he's like, shit.
You know, it was, you know, I made up for all the free time I had before. I was making it up in, you know, droves. It was average 80-hour plus work week. Ooh. On top of that, I was commuting, you know, an hour each way almost. And so then, you know, in a couple of weeks out of the year, when we had gala fundraising events and stuff, I'd be there over 100 hours, and I would spend the night sometimes at the theater on a equity
You really
cup.
went all in, my friend.
I went all no. That's all. That's what it's all about.
That's true.
Always been all in, and that's why my acting success has come about. You know, because I'm always all in, and I'm just boom. And I find out, what do I have to do? If I don't know it, who knows it that can help me?
And that's super commendable. And
good life advice.
Yeah, it
actually.
is.
Yeah. Good life advice, because I actually love that.
There's no, you know, I'm obviously have a high esteem, confident, all that, but I'm not an egomaniac. Like, I realize what are my weaknesses, what are my strengths, and in my weaknesses, I need to make them stronger. And my strengths I share with others, just to be completely, you know, upboard about that, you know, because I feel like what goes around comes around too.
1000%.
Master in the house.
Right on. He was like, I'm gonna come
like, and I've got a book coming out. It's called Quote of the Day, mothers.
No, I mean, but that's so commendable, and that's the difference you see between people who succeed and people who don't. It's like going all in, and I just want to touch on how that really hit home for me. How you said that when your agent called you, and how you said, "No, I'm committed to doing this." So I think that is just super.
This organization that hired me, you know, we went through the whole process. The board had to approve. It was all agreed upon that if I were to take this position, I would no longer be acting. I agreed to that, you know.
Man, so, word, huh?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about them, because you got the call in the car for Hawaii 5-0.
Okay, so yeah.
And now you're up for,
and well, so what happened is that,
let's go there.
In that one, I was there 2.5 years, and I went to Valley Performing Arts Center. So altogether, about 7 years that I was away from acting. Made the decision to come back, and that's a whole story in itself.
What was that?
Well, what it was it was April of 2016. I was working an event. And, no, I was home, sorry. I was thinking of a April Fool's prank that I pulled on my employees when I told them I was leaving. And then 3 weeks later, I did decide to leave. But I was sitting at home. Rarely in those days did I check, like, personal email. That was just like, you know, I had tons of work stuff. And so, but I was happened to be checking personal email. One popped up right there from a friend. So I cut everything clean, except I had a group of 3 other guys that were involved in the industry that I would meet up with every few months for lunch, what have you.
Back in the past. You're like,
well, no, I mean, yeah. I mean, it was more like, it was interesting because I would go to these lunches, and I've never told them this. I would go to these lunches, and out of the camaraderie I have with them, and we have a lot of shared history because we ran a theater company together and everything, but I also felt like I was sort of on the outside looking in now. Like, they're talking about all their industry stuff, and I'm just doing my other, gig over here.
You're getting your coins, living your life.
But anyway, so he sent this email, and it said I have an extra pass to this. It's a creating content conference for, streaming video, et cetera.
Ooh, we need to get it.
And, first come, first serve, can have it on the agreement that you don't miss a day and you don't miss a panel. It was a 2-day thing. It was on a weekend, and weekends for me never existed. I'm always working at least one event on a weekend back then. Well, I looked at the calendar, and it was like, wow, I got that whole weekend off.
That was like meant to happen.
Yeah, I could probably count on one hand during my whole working time that occurs. And so I emailed right away, and I don't know why I did this, because it wasn't like it had been in my mind that I wanted to, I cut it all clean, and I wasn't planning on changing that.
It's like an addict.
But I just emailed right back saying I'm in, because I knew one of the other guys would pick it up, and then I texted my wife, and we didn't have anything going on. And the next thing you know, I'm at the first panel on the first day after having gone in to work early to work for a couple hours, even though it was a day off.
Dedicated.
You know, and I had a huge experience. Like in the first 15 minutes of the first panel, they had these executives, network executives and stuff talking about content and everything. And I was like, this is me. This is home. This is me. Wow. And then I went the rest of the 2 days and just, hugely moved by it. I happened to have a date with my wife right after that second day ended. I had to rush over to the Amundsen for a show, and I can't even remember what the show was, but we had a little reception beforehand where we were talking. She said, well, how's the conference? I just started talking to her, telling her how I was feeling, and 15 minutes later, she says, I think it's time for you to return.
Wow.
And I was just like, I mean, the angels, the heavens broke up. I could hear. I mean, I had no idea. I had this huge gorilla on my shoulder this whole time, and it just disappeared. And I had like goosebumps on I was excited and jazzed. And I'm so good at compartmentalizing things, so I just was not aware that need was inside me. And and then that's how it started. Then I started looking. It took me about almost another half year to get myself out of work, because I'm gonna, I'm the good guy. I'm not I'm gonna make sure I help them with the transition, finish out certain reports that the executive director wanted, etc. So I did all of that. When I was coming back, I had no idea would I even be viable. I'm different. Before I was still young enough where I had a full head of hair, I was clean shaven. I'm a totally different look now. I'm heavier now too. I used to be probably about 30 pounds lighter. And when I used to work, and so I just didn't know.
Was there trepidation with that feeling of like, oh my God, what did I do?
There's certainly, there's a certain amount of trepidation, but it's so overwhelmed by all the motion and focus.
See, now the look in his eyes. Now that. Sorry,
like, what do I have?
He wasn't right for that.
What do I have to do? And who do I need to contact? And I put, social media is great. Social media kind of was I don't want to say a hindrance or a red flag, but it was certainly a challenge coming back, because when I left, that wasn't a present. There was no social media like tied in with your acting, Now there is.
How many numbers do you have? That's
exactly
what they want to know.
Exactly. And yeah, he's better, but look at how many followers this person has. I mean, that was never a consideration before. Yeah. So, but anyway, coming back, social media was great in terms of I just put the word out. I said, you guys, I'm coming back. What's the difference now? And what are the things I need to be aware of? And people were just responding right away, And
so there was dialogue coming back at you.
And again, it's all about what goes around comes around, because I'm always a giver, and I'm always, and all those people that I've given to, and even ones that I don't, but I think feel that from me, they were given to me, and I was receiving. And then, so then 2 weeks before I left, I was like, well, I need to get an agent. First off, I knew commercially, I had a long relationship with a great agency, BBR, Brady Brand Rich, and I was like, are they still viable? Are they still in? They seem to be still good. So I emailed. I'm trying to think of if I can say what she said, but I emailed one of the partners.
Spell it. Come on now.
Okay, Pat Brandon. Well, I don't know. Like, what's the
you
protocol
can look there
here?
if she wants to. She can give it real.
Give it a little.
Go to the plug. What did she say?
Yeah.
Well, Pat Brandon, I emailed her. I just put my name, Tim Lounibos, in the subject, and then I just typed, "I'm coming back. Will you have me?" And 20 seconds later, my cell phone's ringing, and she goes, "Tim, this is Pat Brandon. I am on vacation, but does a bear shit in the woods?" And I said, all right. She goes, I will get a hold of you when I'm back in town. And so the next week she called me in, we set up the meeting, And she goes, we need to go over stuff because it's so different now.
Wow.
And so she went through it with me. Then she brought the other agents in, and we met because there were new agents and stuff, and we talked and stuff. And then I was told now I got to get stuff up on the website, which was a new thing for me too. And so that night I go home and first thing I did as I was driving home was contact my wife's cousin's boyfriend, who I knew had a good camera, and said, can you take me some quick temp shots, headshots? Yeah. And he goes, sure. So he came over, we just took some stuff, and then I put it up that night with, and did the resume and all that stuff. Next day, I'm back at work at Valley Performing Arts Center trying to feverishly finish this huge report that I'm doing for the ED. And at lunchtime, I check my email, and there's an email from BBR, and I'm like, oh. And so, it says, this is not commercial, it's theatrical, but Young and the Restless wants to see you tomorrow. Are you available? And I'm like, first Young and the Restless, and then I look and it says the casting person, Sheila Guthrie, and I'm like, oh my goodness, Sheila Guthrie used to do all these big sitcoms and stuff.
I was about to say, okay, yeah. That name.
And so I was like, wow, and I go, well, I can't do it because I'm still working here. And then, I know. And then all of a sudden, but I caught myself and I said, this is your past and your future is ahead of you. You need to start getting work because I don't have any footage that looks like me. I have to rebuild everything.
Yeah.
And so I emailed back and said, okay, I'll go. And it was wild because my very first role was working on The Bold and the Beautiful. I had
Catherine Kelly Lang. I live The Bold and the Beautiful.
I had one line that said "Yes, ma'am" to Darlene Cardin. Is that her name? And
the redhead.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Rest in peace.
Oh, and she was a ball buster at first when I got there, and I was like, oh my goodness. But then once she realized that I was cool, that I wasn't there to undermine her or steal screen time from her, I was just gonna be there to deliver my line. She was pinching my cheek by the end, and it was the best first job because everyone was great when they realized it was my first job. Bobby Eakes was wonderful. I'll never forget how nice she was to me. But so this was going back. Here I was driving for this audition. It was 5 scenes, playing a therapist, and that was a new thing because I'd never been a therapist before.
I get good vibes
so it was already told me this is where it's going. But driving onto the CBS lot. It was like I'm beginning my second act, which is what I call it, as I did the first. And that just felt like a really good omen to me. And I walked in, I could see the stage where I had worked before and the other stage on the side, went up the hallway, and I remember all of that. And then I sit down and wait, and then Sheila Guthrie comes in at some point to get me. And she goes, Tim. And I go, hey. And I go, this is my first audition in 7 years. And she was floored. And she goes, what? I go, yeah. She goes, wait, where have you been? I go, I left, Sheila. I go, I had to leave. I go, I had to take care of family, so I've been gone.
But now you're back.
Yeah, and then she goes, well, let's do this. And we did it. It was 5 scenes. She had an associate or assistant reading with me, and she was running the camera. And first scene goes by, and there's just like this pause. And she goes, no notes, let's do the second scene. We do the second scene. And she starts to smile and kind of chuckle. Let's do the third scene. We do the third scene. And she's like, oh my God, Tim. She goes, you have a gravitas you did not have before. She goes,
yeah, life in that, taking that break to come back.
That's beautiful.
We did all 5 scenes, and she's like joking around with me and stuff. The person who works with her is like, this is really odd for her because she's not used to the casting person talking to the actor like this. She goes, it's all right. I go, I've known him since he was a young pup. And then we finished it out. She just said, Tim, if you don't get this, you're coming back soon. And then I did get it, and that's how it all started back. So I did that.
We're gonna give you a little cheers on that one because that's exceptional. Yeah.
The other things I did when I first came back, because I didn't have a theatrical agent yet or representation for that, is I emailed a friend of mine who's an executive producer and creator of stuff, shows, Todd Holland, and I just said, Todd, I'm coming back. Here's temp pick and a resume. If you could forward it to your casting people and then call me when it's appropriate, I'd appreciate it. 20 minutes later, there's an email from him, not from them, from him forwarding an email from them. So he like sent it right away. Damn. They sent back saying, we love Tim, blah, 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 and we'll definitely call him in. And a week later, I was called in and I ended up booking that job. And then that was for the Real O'Neills. And then I also went on Facebook and said, well, do I have any friends out there that are casting?
Listen to this.
So I started sending friend requests to some people, cast people and stuff. And then the next day I got called in for a show called Doubt. And that was Katherine Hagel. And
Laverne Cox.
Yes, that's right. And my stuff was with Dule Hill. But I went in for that, and he had said that he saw my friend request, and then he asked his assistant, Jeffrey Drew, was like, where's Tim been? And Jeff's like, I don't know. So
the ultimate mystery.
And then, why don't we call him in for this? So I went in, and then I ended up booking that. And it was just like, it was like the
domino effect.
Yeah.
And the universe.
And it was like getting back on the bicycle. I hadn't forgotten what I do.
and then look at you now. Now you have Bosch. So can you tell?
So Bosch was a great experience. It's kind of interesting. When I came back, I had kind of like this 5-year plan and or outlook of where I wanted to be for each of those years, and the ending would be being a series regular. And so first year representation, second year getting more footage on me, third year then was about to get like a worthwhile recurring role. Well, Bosch, I went like 5-6 months with nothing before Bosch came up. And I really went to like 1 or 2 auditions during that time. Meanwhile, I'd gotten a manager also, so he was now representing me. But on Bosch, I went in and I ended up getting it. And that put me right back on course with my plan. But that was such a wonderful experience because they are great, great people to work with. It's a great show. It's great writing. It's great people across the board. Everyone treats you with respect. Everyone has fun. There are no bad apples on that set,
and that's amazing.
And usually there's at least one. This one, no. And it was the first time I was coming back where it like felt like a home base. For about 4 or 5 months there, it was like even days I wasn't working there, I'd drive by and
He's like,
but exactly. But you walk in, just wait at the security guard, don't have to do ID or anything.
Oh,
and, I mean, it was nice.
Full circle multiple times.
Yeah. So where can you tell everybody where they can watch Bosch?
Bosch is for Amazon Prime. And the 5th season dropped mid-April, or like a couple weeks ago, so it's there right now. And get on Twitter, Bosch fans are going crazy about the season. It's great too. That's a whole new thing too.
Prolific.
In the old days, it was like you don't interact with anyone because you're afraid of a stalker or something. That's kind of gone out the window. And now I'm totally into it. And I love the people that I communicate with. They accepted me. They took me in with open arms. I became part of #Team Bosch before they were even seeing me on the screen.
Amazing.
And I just absolutely love that show.
Okay, so then now I want you to go ahead and tell everyone they can follow you, and then people can stalk you.
Because then they can stalk your ass.
Now they can stalk you.
Yeah. At Tim Lounibos, TimLounibos, for Twitter and Instagram. And then Facebook, it's at Asian American Actor. And fingers crossed, we talked about Hawaii Five-0 in the beginning. I'm up in consideration right now for Emmy nomination for a guest star role that I did on Hawaii Five-0 on March 8th.
And we're going to keep them crossed.
Fingers crossed, guys.
And thank you. And this...
Wait.
This was crazy.
The star of the show.
That's
Good
right.
job.
You guys can follow me across the board at Ariane Andrew.
You can follow me at Matt Dillon 1983, and our base are asleep.
Yeah,
actually.
they're sleeping.
They're so used to this scenario. But we got a new star in town. Thank you for joining us. Should we cheers it out?
Cheers is out. And you guys, until next week on Erotique TV, sipping the tea.
Yeah, you got the wrong number. Click.